Hello everyone, welcome to our page and channel. So basically we're talking about the demand and it's an important part of an economics and who is from English version and English medium. They can see our video and I think that you will be able to understand everything. So let's move on. What is demand in economics? So there are definition of a demand. So basically, demand is the quantity of goods and service that a consumer is willing and able to pay during a specific time period and during a specific price. So the amount of goods and service. So basically, we have the amount of goods and service than consumer is willing and then able to pay. Able to consumer is able to, that is called demand. So there are three things have to in the demand, that the amount of goods and service have to keep, and consumer is willing this amount of goods and service for buying and they are able to pay for buying this goods and service. That is called of demand. And if we say in specific definition, then we can say that the amount of goods and service that a consumer is willing and able to pay, that is called demand. So basically that's all about the definition of demand. So we have to know about the law of demand. What is the law of demand? And law means which follows something that is universally true. So law of demand say that other things remain constant, because we know that in economics, whenever we talk about any law or any formula, that we have to say that other things remain constant. Okay, so we will try to make a relationship between two variables in economics. So other things remain constant and price go up, price rise, then quantity fall, quantity fall, price fall, quantity rise. That is called law of demand. So basically, law of demand calls that other things remain constant. If the price of any goods and service rises, then the quantity of goods and service demanded falls. And on the other hand, if the price of any goods and service falls, then quantity of goods and service rise. That is called law of demand. So other things remain constant, we will discuss in the later. Before that, we will talk about the demand schedule. Demand schedule, that if we see the relationship between of the price and demand, that we know that a negative relationship. And if we are able to say in a table, that is called demand schedule, like price, quantity, price if price 1, then quantity equal to 10, price equal to 2, quantity equal to 5, price equal to 3, quantity equal to 3. So if you say or follow that, the table is following the law of demand, because the whenever price is very low, like 1, then the demand is more or high, called 10. And if the price is 2, and that is called increasing, then the quantity of demand is falling. If the price is 3 or rise, the quantity of demand is falling. That is called law of demand, also the demand schedule. Now we have to move on demand curve. So basically, demand curve, if we are able to say in a curve the negative relationship of the demand and the price, that is called the demand curve. For example, if you draw the demand curve, then we have to show the in. First of all, that is a quantity, because in vertical line we have, sorry, horizontal line you have to show in quantity, and there is the price. Okay, so we divide into quantity equal to like 5 3 5 dot dot dot, then 10, and price 1 2 3. So if the price is 1, then quantity equal to 10. If the price equal to 2, quantity equal to 5, price equal to 3, quantity equal to 3. If we add up the relationship like a bit, see, that is called demand curve. So basically, demand curve is the relationship between the price and quantity of an goods and service. So we are talking about the demand, law of demand. So I think you are understand. Okay. So this all about the demand. So move on the demand, law of demand, law of demand. So we already have said law of demand is that other things remain in the constant. If the price of goods and service rise, then the quantity of goods will fall. Price falls, quantity rise. So other things. What is the other things? We have to discuss other. Sorry, other things. So other things means like number of buyers, number of buyers. Then I will explain later that. Let me then number of buyers, choose future expectation, then income, and basically are other have may have for that will impact on the day lot demand. So this of the things of other things. If other things will change, that demand curve will be shift. Let's move on. For example, in first we draw the demand curve on the quantity equal to 10, quantity price equal to 10, 5, then 3. So those all about quantity. If, for example, number of buyers in the market is increased, or the choice of the consumer is increased, or like preference and the future expectation increase, like in future I think that my income will be increased, or the price of the product will be increased, or the inflation will be increased. Inflation I will discuss in later. So all of the things will change the demand curve will shift. If the number of buyers is increase, or choice increase, or the future expectation increase, or good income to the demand curve will shift rightward. If that they are decreases, then demand curve will be shift leftward. So those all about the demand. And so if the price rise or falls, then demand curve will be movement along. That is called movement along demand curve. Demand curve. If price rise and falls, that is related to price of any quantity of any goods and service, that is called movement along the demand. And if the other things will affect in the demand, then demand curve will shift. Okay, so in exam you may have count that when demand curve will shift, when the demand curve will be moved. So you can answer that, if the price of any goods and service will fall or rise, then that is related to movement along the demand curve. And if the other thing that influence the demand, like the number of buyers, stores, and future expectation income, then demand curve will shift right or left. That will depend if the income rise or falls. So that all about the demand, and I have already explained everything. If you have any problem, then you can contact with me. Thank you, everyone.